Taghi, thank you for joining us. Taghi is a political activist, writer, and a journalist. And he told me today when we were sitting backstage that he has been altogether 14 years in jail. In 4 decades, he has been jailed by the Iranian dictatorship regime in the 80s, in the 90s, and in the 2000s. And imagine 1.5 years altogether he has been sitting in solitary confinement, isolat. Nobody to talk with, no books to read, he told me, nothing. It's just 2 meters and 2 meters, all alone for 1.5 years. And also it's worth mentioning that right here, right now, 250 journalists globally are jailed, are sitting in jail in various countries. One of those journalists is actually his wife. She is also a prominent Iranian writer, and she means a lot to the opposition in Iran. We'll talk about her later. Taghi lives now in exile in Paris, where he continues to write. And also worth mentioning is that he won a Human Rights Watch award in 2005. So first, what can you say about your experiences when the state uses its power to silence journalists? What can you say about your experiences?
Taghi, thank you for being here tonight. یوسف میپرسه که اول تشکر میکنه از شما برای که در برنامه شرکت کردین و بعد میپرسه که چه چیزی میتونید بگید در مورد تجربه خودتون در پس از اینکه شما زندانی شدین توسط حکومت به عنوان یک ژورنالیست.
من تشکر میکنم از شما که توی برنامه شرکت میکنم. ببینید حکومت‌های مثل حکومت ایران مثلا حرف زدن بجور اون چی که اونا میخوان ممنوع. در این فیلم خبرنگار شما راحت میتونه بره تحقیق کنه. ما اصلا نمی‌دونیم وارد صحنه جرم بشیم. ما باید حدس گمان بزنیم. خب با خود یافتن حقیقت برای کسی که ژورنالیسته یه مسئله مهمی و این در جمهوری اسلامی جرم.
First, thank you for having me here tonight. I need to say that states like the Iranian regime forbid talking about anything they do not want you to talk about. So we are not allowed, like in the documentary that we just watched, they were talking about not being allowed to basically investigate the case. We are not allowed to talk, we are not allowed to investigate the cases. Basically, as a journalist, people who would like to find out the truth about the subjects, we are left alone just guessing what is happening.
هر ژورنالیستی که با حکومت نباشه در جمهوری اسلامی میشه مزدور خارجی، مثلا آمریکا، اروپا و اساسا از نظر جمهوری اسلامی ژورنالیستی که موافق ننویسه یا باید بره زندان یا باید تبعید بشه یا باید ساکت بشه.
So basically, in the eyes of the Iranian government, any journalist that is not with the government is against them, and is basically with the other side being Europe or US. So they are either going to be imprisoned, prosecuted, or sent to exile.
خب این در حقیقت ژورنالیستی در ایران، ژورنالیسم آزاد در ایران در حقیقت یک کار به عبارت انتحاری، حتی به نوعی خودکشی میکنه برای اینکه به حقیقت دست پیدا کنه.
So one can say that in fact investigative journalism, the line of journalism that wants to find the truth, can be considered a suicidal act.
suicidal act, you say, then the next question would be, you could have chosen a life of comfort. You could have had probably a good salary working for the regime, maybe a big house, a big fat car, who knows? Why did you choose the other way?
جالبه که اشاره می‌کنید به اقدام خودکشی. خب شما میتونستید به عنوان یک فرد یک زندگی راحت داشته باشید، یک خونه بزرگ، زندگی راحت، تمام ماشین مناسب. چرا شما این چیز رو انتخاب کردین، این راه سخت رو انتخاب کردین؟
خب آدما به دلایل مختلف دنبال حقیقت می‌گردن. خب برای من آزادی همیشه یک اصل مهم بوده. حکومتی که جلوی آزادی میگیره آدم به سوی تبلیغ آزادی میره، خود به خود مقابل حکومت قرار میگیره و این دیگه احساس میکنی اگه ول کنی در حقیقت به اون عقاید خودت خیانت کردی یا پشت کردی. پس وقتی تبعیدم میاد سعی میکنی که بازم برای آزادی در کشور خودت تلاش کنی.
Humans, for various reasons, humans look for the truth. For me, freedom has been a big thing, a big principle. And it is so that the government that does not want you to be free wants to stop your quest for freedom by looking for freedom. And by doing the investigative journalism for being free, you actually turn into a fighter who fights against the government. But then to hold on to your principles, you have to continue.
آزادی اطلاع رسانی بیت دموکراسیه. حتی در کشورها شما آزادی مورد تهدید. در کشور ما آزادی اصلا جرمه. پس تلاش کردن براش ارزش داره، یعنی میارزه من برای این تلاش کنم چون عملا انسان بودن انسان ثابت میشه.
The freedom to work as a journalist is one of the founding principles of democracy. And if you wanted to hold on to that principle, then you have to go all the way, and you have to sacrifice the thing that is needed to sacrifice to hold on to that principle.
بدون آزادی خبررسانی آزادی وجود نداره و در جمهوری اسلامی آزادی خبررسانی وجود نداره. خود به خود انسانیت هم تهدید میشه بعد مدتی. پس آدمی که بخواد انسانی زندگی کنه ناچار برای آزادی تلاش کنه. این سری شعار نیست، یه واقعیته.
Taghi says that he believes that without having the freedom to the freedom of expression and freedom to act as a journalist, there would be no freedom. In the Islamic Republic, there is no freedom for the journalistic activities in reality, and that would threaten the principles of humanity. And to stay human and to be truthful to that principle, then you have to persevere and try to basically work as a journalist for that freedom. This is not a slogan, this is the truth.
میخوام یه مثالی بزنم. جمهوری اسلامی اول آزادی گرفت از مردم و الان نان مردم هم گرفته. یعنی نوع سیاستش طوریه که مردم ایران حتی دیگه نمیدونن به راحتی یه زندگی عادی اقتصادی داشته باشن. پس آزادی مهمه.
Just to give you an example as how it has worked in the case of the Islamic Republic, what they did first to the people was that they took away from them their freedom. But now the state is so that people do not have bread to eat. So they first take away your freedom, and then they take away the other things. This would work as the first step to take away your livelihood.
با توجه به دنیا جدید آزادی که مثل جهانی است، یعنی اگه آزادی ما گرفته بشه برای مدت که آزادی اروپا در خطر خواهد به خاطر مهاجرت زیاد، به خاطر جنگ، به خاطر ناامنی. پس همه باید برای آزادی تلاش کنیم. دیگه الان آزادی فقط مال مثلا اگه تو سوئد باشه کافی نیست. اگه آزادی در خاورمیانه نباشه بعد مدتی این عدم آزادی اروپا هم تهدید خواهد کرد.
In the new world order, as we live the world as it is today, the case for freedom is an international case, it's a global case. It's not just something that would work within the borders of Europe, for example, because if in a place like Middle East there is no freedom, then there would be things, consequences like immigration, like war, like insecurity across the borders that would affect the freedom of people in Europe as well. So when we talk about freedom, freedom is not something that can be restricted within certain geographical borders. It is something that is a global problem, is a global subject.
As a Norwegian person, I cannot imagine how it's like to experience what you have experienced as a journalist and as a citizen of conscience. Can you describe to us, how is a normal day like in solitary confinement, so we can understand what you have been going through, and many others? How is it like? How does a day in solitary confinement start?
در مورد آزادی صحبت میکنید از اینکه یک مفهوم جهانیه. به عنوان یک شخصی که یک شهروند نروژ، من حتی نمیتونم شروع کنم تصور بکنم که شما چی تجربه کردین در زندان و در تجربتون از سلول انفرادی. چجوریه یه زندگی، یک روز عادی در زندان توی سلول انفرادی چجوری شروع میشه؟ میتونید برای ما توصیفش کنید؟
ببینید وقتی سلول انفرادی یه اتاقیه که مثل قبریه که درش از روبرو باز میشه و شما ناچاری جلادت خود کمون بازجوته گاهی میشه منجی تو، تنها کسی که تو میدونی باش ارتباط داشته باشه اونه. و تو سلول انفرادی روز گذراندن یه هنره، به طوری که نباید دقایق تو حس کنی، تو باید ساعت ها هم حس نکنی، فقط فکر کنی الان روز یه کاری کنی شب بشه بخوابی دوباره بیدار بشه. و این یه نوع تجربه است، باید به دست بیاری که من میدونم بیشتر توضیح بدم دربارش.
Being in isolation, in solitary confinement could be, one could say it resembles living in a grave, where the door, the opening is the door that is in front of you, opens, that is the opening to the grave, basically. And what you could interact, who you could interact with, is the one who tortures you, is the one who prosecutes you. But at the same time, that person is as if it is your savior, because it is the only one that you could have contact with. In solitary confinement, basically, every day, it is an art to pass every day. You shouldn't think about minutes. You shouldn't think about hours. You should just think, okay, one day turns to another night. So you don't take minutes or hours. You take it as days so that it's tolerable. And it is a very specific experience. I could explain it to you more.
نرگس در کتاب شکنجه سفید سعی کرده اینو قشنگ به تصویر بکشه. سلول انفرادی جاییه که آدما علیه خودشان حرف میزنن تا اعدام بشن یا دوستانشون اعدام بشن تحت فشار. یعنی اینقدر شرایطی سخته. سلول انفرادی چیزیه که تو در حقیقت به طوری زخمی میشی ولی جایی زخمش مشخص نیست. وقتی که شما کاب میخوری بدنت زخم میشه، ولی تو سلول انفرادی وقتی تو میشکنی و به بازجوی خودت بله میگی، در حقیقت بیشتر خراب داغان میشی چون هیچ جای زخمی رو بدنت نیست. این خاطر یک وسیله شکنجه مفیدیه تو ایران برای استبداد. یعنی یک وسیله مفید شکنجه است برای استبداد و دیکتاتورها.
In her book, Narges Mohammadi, Mr. Rahmani's wife, in her book, Why Torture, she has tried to portray what it is to be in solitary confinement. Once one is put in a condition in solitary confinement, one starts to talk against his or her own case, so that they would be executed, or they might talk about their friends, against their friends, and get them executed. All this happens under enormous pressure in solitary confinement. It is like in prison when they beat you up. Then you are wounded. You can see the wounds. But in solitary confinement, the way they wound you is so that you are wounded, but you can't actually see the injury, the site. And that is a very, very useful torturous way for the government to get you to do the thing they want. By wounding you, you're not even able to see your own wounds, and they can get you to do the things that you don't want to do under pressure, enormous pressure.
من یه تجربه بگم. حبیب خبیری فوتبالیست مشهور ایرانی بود که دستگیر شد سال 1362 1984 بود. این تو سلول انفرادی زیاد مانده بود، مصاحبه نمی‌کرد. خب میدونست اگه مصاحبه کنیم بعد اعدامش میکنم. بعد خسته شد که من مصاحبه میکنم تا اعدام کنم راحت بشم از این زندگی، و در حقیقت مصاحبه کرد و اعدام شد. شرایط سخت سلول انفرادی. او بهترین فوتبالیستای آسیا بود در زمان خودش.
Just to use an example of a famous footballer, very good footballer in Asia, Mr. Habib Khabiri. He was arrested in 1984, and he was put in solitary confinement for a very, very long time. And when they would try to basically get words out of him, he would not cooperate, so he wouldn't talk. So the way to understand how this solitary confinement works is that they would put you under pressure, you talk, and once you have said the thing they want you to say, then you are executed. So he wouldn't talk because the end of that would be the execution. But at the end of the day, he became so tired that he decided to basically sit and talk to the prosecutor, and then once with the aim that once he's done with that, they would execute him, and then he's done. They can't torture him anymore, and he would not suffer. And in fact, that's what happened. Once he started talking, answering questions, not long after that, he was executed.
Those are horrific realities. I want to ask you about your wife, Narges Mohammadi. Sorry again for my Farsi pronunciation. I'll try my best. But I understand she has been in prison for, is it 5 years now? I understand she also has a very important voice for the Iranian opposition, and that she somehow is able to write from prison and get the message out there. How would you describe your wife?
اینها تجربیات بسیار بسیار وحشتناکیه، چیزهایی که شما توصیف میکنید. الان من دوست دارم که در مورد همسرتون خانم نرگس محمدی از شما سوال بکنم. اونطور که من متوجه شدم خانم محمدی حدود 5 سال در زندان بودن تا به حال، ولی یک صدای بسیار بسیار مهم برای ناراضی های سیاسی، افرادی که از نظر سیاسی ناراضی هستن، اکتیویست های سیاسی هستن در ایران و حتی قادرن که از داخل زندان بنویسن. توصیف بکنید چطوری خانمتون رو توصیف میکنید خانم محمدی رو؟
نرگس یه انرژی بیپایانی داره و خودش فعال حقوق بشر میدونه و معتقد است که باید در راه بهبود حقوق بشر در ایران تلاش کنه. به این خاطر از ایران هم خارج نشد و براش هم فرق نمیکنه در زندان یا بیرون تلاش کرده مثل دیگر فعالان حقوق بشر، منتها این با انرژی بیشتر در راه بهبود حقوق بشر تلاش کنه. به خاطر همین جمهوری اسلامی اساساً سختگیری زیادی به نرگس داره. نرگس در انفرادی دچار بیماری شد ولی بازم دست از فعالیت بر نداشت و همیشه تو نوشته‌هاش میگه من همه چیزم از دست دادم تا برای اینکه بتوانم برای حقوق بشر در ایران برای همه تلاش کنم.
I can start by saying that Narges has an unending reservoir of energy. She knows herself as a human rights activist. She believes that she needs, this is her way, this is her goal, this is her calling, that she should work for improving the human rights conditions. And exactly because of that, she has not left Iran. She has chosen to stay in the country. And because of her principles and believing in her cause, she doesn't think that being in prison should make any difference in how she should fight for human rights. She should be as active as other activists that are outside prison. Exactly because of that reason, the Islamic Republic is very particular in trying to basically restrict her. They are very, very harsh on her. She has stayed in solitary confinement for a long time, and she has become ill because of staying in solitary confinement. But she has not given up her activities. And what she says is that I have lost all I have had, all I have, so that we reach the goal that is to secure the rights of humans.
حقوق بشر یه آرمان انسانی، یعنی شما همه انسانها رو مثل خودت دوست داری. نرگس یه بار به کیانا وقتی که دخترم وقتی زیاد چیز میکرد میگه خب تو نمیخوای دخترهای دیگم آزاد باشن و من برای آزادی همه دخترها تلاش میکنم. این حقوق بشر یک آرمان انسانی است و آدمایی که واقعا به فعال حقوق بشر میشن باید بتوانن همه انسانها رو دوست داشته باشن و دوست داشتن همه انسانها دنیا رو زیباتر میکنه و این هنوز سیاست به این مرحله نرسیده، ولی خب انسانهایی هستن که برای بهبود حقوق بشر در جهان تلاش میکنن. نرگس یکی از اونها.
Believing in the universal human rights is a human principle, and at the core of it is that to fight for human rights, you need to love every human being. Like Kiana, Narges and Taghi's daughter once was talking to her mom, basically talking about the experience of her being away from the family. So Narges asked Kiana, but don't you want other girls to be free? What I am doing is try to fight for them so that they would be free. Uh, Going back to the very basic human principle that this believing in human rights is something that belongs to everyone. And to be that, to fight for that, you need to love everybody, every single human being. And that way, the world would be a much more beautiful place. And this is the thing that the politics has not reached. The politics has not reached that level that the human rights principles or activists have reached and fight for, and that is exactly what Narges is fighting for, to reach that state where everyone is loved.
That's beautiful words, and I like love. I'm a soft-hearted person, after all. So, regarding love, what is it that you love about your wife?
اینها خیلی کلمات، خیلی مفاهیم زیباییه چیزهایی که شما بهش اشاره میکنید و من با آدمی که به زیبایی ارج و احترام میذاره این رو من رو تاچ کرده، من این رو احساس میکنم. در مورد دوست داشتن صحبت کردید، در مورد عشق صحبت کردید. برای من بگید چطوریه این ارتباط دوستانه عاشقانه شما با زنتون، با خانمتون؟ چجوری، چه چیزی رو در شخصیت نرگس دوست داری؟
ببینید من کلاس های مخفی که در قزوین داشتم، نرگس در اون کلاس ها شرکت میکرد. خب اون موقع یک دختر دانشجوی بسیار فعالی بود و با انرژی، یک صدای گرمی هم داشت که توش هیجان زیادی بود. وقتی که من با هم ازدواج کردیم، او هیچ چیزی از زندگی از من نخواست، نه طلا، نه مراسم پرشکوه ازدواج، هیچی نخواست و با یه زندگی خیلی ساده با من شروع کرد و هر مبارزه که من میکردم نرگس هیچ وقت نمیگفت مثلا زندگی ما چی میشه. وقتی من زندان رفتم او از من و همه زندانی‌ها حمایت کرد. از این منظر به حقوق بشر کشیده شد. خب وقتی آدم این همه تلاشو میبینه، خب حالا ازدواج و علاقه اینا، خب یه احساس میکنه که با یه آدمی مواجه هست که حاضر برای دیگری از منافع، از راحتی خودش بگذره. این برای من خیلی قابل ارج بود، چون من خودم با همین ارزش‌ها بزرگ شده بودم و نرگس حرف نزد، عمل کرد. وقتی عمل کرد خود به خود آدم احساس میکنه با کسی طرفی که حالا یک مسابقه ناخواسته با تو داره در همون آرمان‌های مشترک. و خب الانم زندانم و تو زندانم مدام برای آزادی و حقوق بشر می نویسه. برای نرگس مهم نیست بهایی، چپ، راست، مذهبی، غیر مذهبی، همه انسانن و همه حقوق دارن و از همه حقوق همه اون رو دفاع میکنن.
To answer your question, I need to go back to the time when I first met Narges. I was having some underground classes in Qazvin, a city near Tehran. And back in those days, she was a young activist student with lots of energy, with a warm voice, with lots of excitement in her voice. After we got to know each other and we got married, she didn't ask me for anything, no material, nothing, no gold, no big party, nothing. We had a simple life. And as I was going about doing the activities, the political activities that I was doing at the time, she never asked me about the consequences. She accepted that that was the thing that I wanted to do, and she gave me her full-hearted support. When I was sent to prison, she defended me and other prisoners. And that took her to the case of fighting for human rights. And when I look back, when you look back and you see someone who tries so hard for something, the values of their partner, my values in that case, then you see that here there is a human that is happy to sacrifice anything and forget their own benefits, their own personal benefits, and that is something that has been all my life one of my principles, to fight for the thing that you value, for your principles. And in her case, in Narges's case, it wasn't just that it was a slogan, it was something that she said. She actually acted upon what she was saying. Um, and it was as if we were in an unwanted kind of competition over reaching our goals, our principles. That we shared, the goals and principles that we shared. And ultimately, she ended up being in prison for exactly because of that. For her, it doesn't make any difference whether the person comes from the left or the right of the political lines, or if there is someone who is Baha'i, someone is religious, someone is not religious. For her, all of them are humans, they have rights, and she would fight for them.
Wow. What a couple.
I will applaud that.
In the struggle that you and your wife share for basic human rights and freedom of election and freedom of press, so far, what is the most important thing that you and your wife have achieved in this struggle?
در تمام این مشکلاتی که شما و خانومتون در مبارزاتتون باهاش مواجه شدید برای آزادی انتخابات و برای آزادی مطبوعات، فکر میکنید بزرگترین چیزی که تا به حال بهش دست پیدا کردین چی بوده؟
ببینید، بزرگترین چیزی که آدم میدونه برای تحقق و آزادی پیدا کنه اینکه بتواند کاری بکند که جامعهش هم به این حساس باشه. و الان جامعه ایران یه مقدار این حساسیت رو پیدا کرده، یعنی قدر آزادی میدانه و این به نظر من یه ورود خوبیه. این مهمترین چیزیه که تلاش انسان‌ها برای به وسیله خود انسان‌های دیگه دیده بشه. اون موقع اون آدم احساس رضایت میکنه و الان جامعه ما یه مقدار در این حالته. این جنبش ژینا یا مهسا نشان داد که جامعه به آزادی خود برای رسیدن به حقوق خودش حساس تر شده و این به نظر من دل آدمایی مثل نرگس رو شاد میکنه و خیلی کسایی که برای حقوق بشر در ایران تلاش کردن الان تبعیدن، زندانن یا وادار به سکوت شدن. نرگس هم خوبی که از اوناست که الان داره تلاش میکنه و این به نظر من وقتی جامعه درک کنه تلاش انسانو، این خیلی اثرگذاره و خیلی هم باعث رشد خود اون جامعه و رشد خود اون فرد میشه.
I think the most important thing, the most important step in achieving freedom is to make the society, the people, understand how important that is. And I believe now the Iranian society has become sensitive to that, has woken to the importance of this issue, and they appreciate freedom. And this is the most important that this is the most important achievement when someone fights for something, that others start seeing the point. So this gives a sense of satisfaction. As we see now in the woman life freedom movement in the name of Jina Mahsa Amini, we see that the Iranian society has become really aware of the lack of freedom, and they show how much they would want to be freer as a society. This is something that would make Narges and other people who have fought for people's freedom and human rights, the ones who have been in exile, the ones who have been imprisoned, the ones who have been silenced. This change, the societal change that people have started basically voicing the same concerns and saying that they would want the freedom for themselves. This is something that makes us happy. And in the end, this would result in changes in the society, in the positive changes in the society, development in the society, as well as develop in the people who fight for freedom to start with.
I think now it's time to give the microphone to people in the audience who have questions. So if Shabdan can be an angel try.
It's an honor to hear your story here. I've recently, a couple of years ago, traveled to Iran myself and visited this fantastic country and its people, and it's of course terrible the way they have to live under this horrendous regime, and of course under the new leadership is not a hopeful one, the new leadership that come with the new president. But I wanted to ask you how you view the future of Iran. How do you see real change coming about in Iran? Is it through more political means, or is it through people's movement, or how do you see real change coming to be? And second, what do you feel is the most efficient way of foreign governments? What measure can they use that will be most efficient in pressuring the current regime and pressuring change in Iran? Thank you so much.
اول من میخواستم تشکر بکنم از شما برای بودنتون اینجا. یه افتخاره که اینجا نشسته باشم و به شما گوش بکنم. من 2 سال قبل خودم به ایران سفر کردم، با مردمش آشنا شدم و تجربه خیلی خوبی داشتم از مسافرتم به ایران. در این حال اینکه یک همچین رژیم بسیار بسیار وحشتناک و سفاکی در ایران هست، مخصوصا تحت رهبری جدید، احتمالاً به رئیسی اشاره میکنن، این خیلی سخت دیدنش. و سوالی که من دوست دارم از شما بپرسم اینه که شما آینده ایران رو چطوری میبینید؟ در اختصاصا 2 تا سوال دارم. این که به چه روشی به نظر شما بهترین روش ها هستن برای تغییر شرایط موجود؟ آیا این به این طریق هست که اهرم‌های فشار سیاسی استفاده بشه برای تغییر شرایط موجود، یا اینکه این چیزهای مردمی، این جنبش‌های مردمی به نظرتون؟ سوال اول هست. و سوال دوم هم اینه که به عنوان به نظر شما اینکه رژیم‌های خارجی خارج از ایران بهترین اهرم فشاری که میشه گذاشت برای تغییر توسط رژیم‌های خارجی به نظر شما چیه؟
اولا من خیلی تشکر میکنم از این سوال خیلی خوبی است.
First, I would like to thank you for this really, really good question.
من از سوال سوم شروع میکنم.
I start from the third question.
ما همه جامعه مدنی جهان باید بدونن که سوار یک کشتی.
The whole human population needs to be aware of the fact that everyone is on the same ship.
شما اگر از آزادی ما حمایت میکنید، دقیقاً از آزادی خودتان هم دارید حمایت میکنید.
If people of the world are supporting the freedom for people of Iran, they are actually supporting their own freedom.
دولت‌های غربی هنوز اینو متوجه نیستن یا نمیخوان متوجه بشن. دولت‌های غربی.
The Western governments are either not aware of that or they do not want to accept.
اینا با دولت‌های دیکتاتوری منطقه ما بازی گربه و موش دارن.
The Western governments, they play cat and mouse with the dictatorship regimes in our region.
این برای جامعه مدنی غرب هم خطرناکه.
And this is quite dangerous for the societies in Europe, in the West.
اگه جهان بخواد دوباره 11 سپتامبر و حمله برج‌های دوقلو نداشته باشه باید تو منطقه ما دموکراسی باشه.
If we don't want to see the repetition of 9/11 and Twin Towers in future, we need to secure democracy and freedom in our region.
و این نهادهای مدنی غربی باید به دولتاشون فشار بیارن که برای همیشه پشتیبان اعتراضات مردم کشورهای ما باشن به جای تحریم و به جای حمله نظامی. و این حمایت باید همیشه باشه. نیست هنوز. این حمایت اگر باشه وقت سازمان داده میشه و مردم قوی تر میشه.
So to reach that freedom for everyone, including people in the West, the movements, نهادهای مدنی, the civil societies in the West need to support the causes and the freedom in the other regions, and press their own governments so that this would become the way to go, not the sanctions, not the war. And if this kind of support is organized in the West, then the end result would be that the people of the regions, like in Iran, would be able to reach what they are fighting for, and in the end, the whole global society.
اما سوال بعدی، جامعه ما یه جامعه معترض به حکومتش. جمهوری اسلامی اونجوری که ادامه بده فروپاشی میشه. برای اینکه یه پوتینی به وجود نیاد، دوباره یه پوتینی تو ایران به وجود نیاد، مثل دیکتاتور نیاد، باید این جامعه ما معترض بمانه و اینه باید غرب بدانه که کمک کنه به اعتراضات مردم ایران تا شاید جامعه ما به دموکراسی واقعی نزدیک بشود. این چیزیه که من درباره جامعه ایران میبینم. منتها باید تلاش کنیم برای دموکراسی و آزادی.
To answer your next question, now the situation is that the Iranian society, the Iranian people are protesting their government, and this would ultimately lead to toppling the government. But there is a caveat there, because we need to think that not to fall into the groove of another dictatorship and a new Putin, so to say. Our society needs to stay as a society that can voice its concern, and it should be kept that way. A society that can protest. And I think what is important there, as means coming from the Western world, is that the Western society, the governments can help the protest that is happening on the floor by Iranian people, so that we would reach a real democracy and not a new dictatorship.
I have one good and one bad news for you. The bad news, we start with that, is we have time only for one more question now before the break. The good news is that we will have a panel discussion in the very end where we can ask more questions to Taghi. So anyone with one last question in the audience? That has the gentleman over there.
Very brief. Yeah, thank you very much. It's been an honor and very powerful to hear you. Now, in your country, to become a martyr is a very powerful thing. So does the government, if they would, when they prosecute you and even kill you after, as you mentioned, how does government do anything to avoid that you should become a martyr, because you would be a very strong symbol for the fight, ongoing fight, in spite of dying?
First of all, اولش میخواستم از شما تشکر بکنم برای بودنتون اینجا. افتخار بود برای من که به شما گوش بکنم. سوال من این هست که در فرهنگ شما شهید شدن یک ارزشه، یک چیز ارزشه بسیار قویه و سوال من برمیگرده به این که وقتی که حکومت افراد معترض رو تحت شکنجه قرار میده، تحت فشار قرار میده یا اونها رو میکشه، برای اینکه جلوگیری بکنه از اینکه اینها تبدیل به شهدایی بشن که یک سمبل بشن برای جنبش، برای اون چیکار میکنه برای اینکه از اون جلوگیری کنه؟
حکومت اینجور آدما رو میگه اینا جاسوس آمریکان، جاسوس اروپان، مسلمان نیستن، کافرن، از این سخنا میگه.
The Iranian government uses various ways to avoid those people becoming martyrs. They call them spies for US, for Europe. They say that they are not Muslims, they are infidels.
ولی تو همین جنبش مهسا شکست خورد، چون بازم آدما مردم الان از کسایی که کشته میشن، کور میشن حمایت میکنن و این روش حکومت داره به اصطلاح عکس خودش تبدیل میشه. بعد تو همین جنبش مهسا یه سری خانواده های فرمانده های سپاه بچه هاشون در مقابل پدراشون وایستادن و به اصطلاح دید اونا رو پس دادن. الان یه فرهنگ مقاومت جدیدی هم تو ایران در حال شکل گیری است و مهمتر تو همین مراسم محرم که خب رو شهادت امام حسین، امام سوم شیعیان هست، اتفاقا نوحه های خوانده میشد علیه حکومت، یعنی حکومت رو با یزید برابر میکرد. اینا اتفاقاتی داره میفته، هم اونایی که به اصطلاح مذهبی نیستن با حکومت درگیرن، هم بخشی از کسایی که الان مذهبی هم هستن ولی بازم با حکومت دارن درگیر میشن. آرام آرام حکومت داره تو ذهن خیلی‌ها جای یزید رو پیدا میکنه و تو فرهنگ ایرانی یزید سمبل ظلمه.
Back to what you asked about what the government does. Taghi is saying that in the current movement, the woman life freedom movement, Mahsa's movement, the government seems to have failed in their strategy. People support the ones who are prosecuted, the ones who are killed. You know that some people have been blinded. They support them. And this strategy has backfired. The Iranian regime's, the Islamic Republic's strategy has backfired. It has been so that during this current movement, in the families that are connected to the Sepah, their own offspring have come against their fathers, and they have gone to the side of the protesters. So that change is also happening. It seems that there is a new resistance culture having been formed in Iran. Like we can refer to this religious carnival. There is this annual religious carnival in Iran where they would commemorate the passing or the fight that the third Shia Imam had against the guy who was supposedly the bad guy, the symbol of the bad and oppression, Yazid, his name was. So during this annual religious festival, people were coming out and they were reciting the supposedly religious verses that are usually used to front and to promote the ideals and the ideas of the government. People were coming and using the same things against the government. It has become so that the one who is not religious is fighting against the government, and the one who is religious is also fighting against the government now, using their own symbols for bad and for darkness, being Yazid, to describe them, the government.
با خیلی از مذهبی ها الان با حکومت ایران مشکل دارن، یعنی فقط غیر مذهبی ها نیستن که با حکومت ایران مشکل دارن. خیلی کسایی که الان مذهبی هن، شیعن و سنی، معتقدن حکومت دینی به درد دین نمیخوره و این ایده هی داره بیشتر میشه. من خودم به اون تفکر نزدیک هستم.
It is so that even people who are religious have become to find problems with the regime in Iran, and they basically believe, many of the people who do have religious beliefs, Shia, Sunni, of all sorts, they believe that having a non-secular government is not good for the religion itself. I myself belong to that group. I find myself within that group.
مثل کشمکش لورد ولتر و کالون با کلیسا، بخش مثل ما یه سری مثل پروتستان هایی هستن که میخوان با کلیسا، با پاپ، در این کشمکش در نوعی در ایران هست. بخشی از مسلمان ها معتقدن که باید از روحانیت که الان حکومت میکنه مشروعیت بدهی کرد. هر کی میتواند خدای خودشو پیدا کنه، لازم نیست با به وسیله روحانی اون کارو بکنه. و حکومت دینی حتی مانع دینداری شد. الان این دیدگاه هم تو ایران خیلی داره قدرتمند میشه.
We can use the example of what happened in Europe in the separation of church and state. That, for example, Protestants they had problems with the church and ultimately with the Pope. The same thing is happening in Iran. That people have problems with the priesthood, and they believe that believing in religion, believing in God or not, is a personal thing, and you don't need a priest to have or not have that kind of thing, that relation, and the fact that having a non-secular government is a hinder for the religion itself.
Regarding time, this is a very interesting conversation, but we have to go to the break now. We can continue in the panel discussion. I want to, before we go to the break, I want to say two thank yous. I want to say thank you to the lady on my left. My Farsi pronunciation is not quite there yet, but it's, how do you say it? Farzane. Okay, not too difficult. The meaning of her name is the one who's very intelligent, I understood today. And she denied this, and she said, no, it's completely random. But I also know that she happens to be a medical doctor and a psychiatrist. So. And last but not least, from the bottom of my heart, Taghi, thank you for fighting. Thank you for resisting. Thank you for bringing hope. Wow.
Thank you.